Hi, welcome to lesson 4. I'm going to give you some tips on painting for beginners, watercolour. I'm going to give you some do's and don'ts. So I'm going to start with the don'ts. Alright, got my brushes at the ready, got my colours at the ready, and I'm going to start by painting in every second space because we don't want it to bleed. That's the only tip I'm going to give you at the moment. So I'm going to start with my lightest colour. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to paint that in, and I'm doing this in real time so that you can see exactly what's happening. If I don't do it in real time, if I speed it up, you will find it much more difficult to see what's going on. So always try to, move the paper with your hand because it makes painting much easier. Right, and make sure you've got the right size of brush, because if you don't have the right size of brush, it'll either take you too long or you'll go outside of the edges. Okay, so that's the first section painted. Alright, wash the brush out in the big pot and clean it in the little pot. So I'm going to go green, yellow, orange, red. So I'm going to get my red at the ready. So this is the blue red. Okay, different packs will have the paint called different names depending on what make you're using, whether you're using cheap ones or professional ones. So find one that's a blue-red, and that'll be a good one for making your purple. Okay, so you can see how this is going. Right, I've started at one end and keep dipping in plenty of paint, and I'm pulling around the paint as I'm going. Alright, turning my page as I'm going. My brush is just a little bit wet from dipping it in, so I'm just drying it off so I don't slip on the handle. Okay, working fast but not too fast. Now you might not be able to work as fast as this. That's okay, because as a beginner just take your time and don't worry about making mistakes, because you learn lots from making mistakes. Even as a professional artist and an art teacher, I still make mistakes, still make lots of mistakes, and it's good to make mistakes. Alright, so nearly there. Hopefully I'm giving you plenty of advice as we're going along and you don't get too bored going in real time. Okay, so ready for the next colour. So the next colour, wash my brush out. Next colour is the mixture of the blue and the blue red. Okay, whatever yours are called. These ones are cobalt and Alzerian crimson. Okay, so here we go with the purple, and I'm actually going to swap to a bigger brush. Not much bigger, you see it's just slightly bigger. If you can work with it, go for it, because you'll get on much better. You'll see how much quicker I can get around this now. Okay, I just wanted to show you the difference between a smaller brush and a larger brush. As long as your brush goes into a nice tip, nice pointy tip, that's fine. Some of the cheaper brushes won't go into as nice a tip as the better quality ones. These are not the best quality ones, and these so they don't go into the best tip, but they're okay. These are Winsor & Newton Coatman, so these are the student quality ones, and you can probably see from this brush, look, all the paint has come off it. These brushes, believe it or not, are fairly new, yet some of my older brushes I've actually had for years, and I'll show you an example. This is the same Winsor & Newton Coatman. I've had this one for about 10 years and no paint off that one. I think that they've definitely cheapened down the quality and the application of it, so I'm finding that nearly every single one of my newer brushes has the paint chipping off, which the problem is not just the wood rotting if you leave it in water, which you shouldn't do anyway. It's little chips falling and sticking to your watercolour when you don't notice. So I'm nearly here with the purple, getting there slowly but surely. Okay, so once I've finished this, I'm going to go back and fill in the colours in between. They should be dry enough now so that they won't bleed together. Obviously, if I had done them all in a winner, I'm going to go back to the little brush. If I had done them all in the winner, and I'm just going to turn my phone off because you heard it ping before, then what would have happened was it would just have all bled together. Now, you might want it to bleed together, but you might not, so that's an important consideration. So here we go with the green. Now I'm going to show you what not to do this time. So I'm going to take my green and I'm going to do my outline. Oops, now I'm just going into the yellow a wee tiny bit. That's because I'm rushing, that's why it's really important to take your time. Okay, so I've done the outline and I'm now going to start putting that there. I'm just going to leave that for a wee minute because something you might do is you might start it and then you might get distracted. You might go and make yourself a cup of tea, answer the door, something like that. Now I'm going to go into the orange and I'm thoroughly washing my brush. You can hear that getting cleaned in the background. Thoroughly washing my brush so that I don't contaminate the orange. Okay, so this is still damp. I can tell because the paper's buckled, but it's dry enough that I can come in with the orange. So I'm going to show you, these are the don'ts now. So what I'm going to do with the orange is carefully bring that round. Now, I don't know whether the camera's picking up on it, but I can see that the orange is bleeding into the red, and that's because the red is not fully dry. So the first thing, you need to make sure if you want separate colours, whatever it is you're painting, whether it's a rainbow or something else, that if you don't want the colours to bleed, you don't put the colours on when your paper's wet. That looks quite dry, but I knew it wasn't. But you might not know that it's not dry because it looks dry, it's touch dry, but the paper, especially if you're using better quality paper, holds the paint in the water and keeps it a bit damp longer, and it's starting to bleed through. Especially you can see it there. I don't know if I just hold that up to the camera and you might be able to see, hopefully that's still in focus. You can see that it's starting to bleed. Now probably that'll give us a little bit of a problem later on. We'll find out if it gives us a little cauliflower, because if that paint's dry and then I've got wet paint going into it, then that's when you'll find that there's more chance of a cauliflower developing. Now you can also see that because it was damp there, that some of the paint has run into that as well. Okay, so I'm going to have to turn this round. Now the problem is with using my camera, I can't actually see what's on the screen compared to my phone, but I can get better quality pictures with the camera. Okay, so we'll soon find out if the yellow's dry enough. Hopefully it's a bit drier than the red was because it was done first. Right, so you can also see how painstakingly slow this is to do that. So I've outlined that and I am going to now come back and start to put in the colour. Now you can see what's happened here is that because this line has already started to dry off, and depending on your paper, if your paper is cheaper, you'll find that this dries off much quicker. Mine's is a little bit more forgiving because it's a better quality paper, right? But you can see that where it's dried off, it ends up with a mark. I'm going to leave that to dry off a bit more so you can see it a bit more obviously, because again you might end up outlining a bigger area and it shows up more obviously. I'll go back to the green and you'll see it more on the green because it has dried. So if I now come back in to fill in the space, because that has dried, I'm going to get, you'll see it more when it's dried completely, but I'm going to get patchiness in there. Right, so I'm going to change my brush to the slightly bigger brush and I'm going to show you the blue, and again the same thing here. I'm going to outline it so that you can see exactly what I mean with this, to let you see. Again, I'm brushing it just a little bit. You take your time just a little bit more and do it the method that I showed you at the start with the red and the yellow. You can see how nice and flat and perfect that is, apart from where the orange has now bled in. Okay, right, so again I have taken my time. I need to turn this to try and get in here. And once I finish this, I'm going to give you 2 examples in the sky of what to do and what not to do, but the difficulty is that it's a much larger space up here for your paint drying and your paint not drying. So you will find that when I come to the other side here, I'm going to give you a wet and wet demo. This is wet paint on dry paper. This will be wet paper with wet paint, and it gives a completely different effect, and you can actually cover larger areas much quicker. Okay, so this is, remember, the what not to do. The green is the what not to do, the orange is what not to do, and the blue the what not to do. So you can see that I outlined it, went all the way right round it. So if I now come back to this side, say you've gone away and made a cup of tea, or you outlined all your parts of your rainbow and you let them all dry, and then you come back, then what happens is it starts to become patchy, because you can see that now where that bit was on first, when I take the paint over it, it now gives it a second layer, and you basically get several layers of paint giving patchiness instead of one complete layer of paint giving a nice smoothness. Right, so if I go back round, just filling in the space, you can see what a terrible mess it is. Now, do not worry if yours ends up being like this, because first of all, you are a beginner. Secondly, it takes practice to get to know what sort of temperature your room should be, because if it's too hot it dries too fast. If your paper is cheaper, it will dry faster as well. If your paint has more, if your water has more paint in it, it's got more concentrate in it. And again, if there's more concentrate in it, it will also dry quicker. Right, back to the orange, which I have thoroughly let dry, and this will really show you, you can see a tiny bit where the orange is overlapped. But when I now put in this bit, wherever the previous paint has been and overlaps, it ends up with a very obvious line. So you can see the difference in how flat the yellow is, the red is, and the purple is when you use the technique of starting at one end and pulling your paint with you. Right, onto the sky.